Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I do. Oh, it's okay. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Oh my God, I'm afraid of the
Whose fault is that though? Is it network? Is it like, cause like that?
I don't. That's not network. That's not network. Wasn't there.
That's an inner person.
Right. Network wasn't there. Network wasn't there.
How would they know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Then they found out the same way that we found out on social media.
There was a moment that made a lot of people stop and say, wait, what? Tamar Braxton suing her own mother. Not a stranger. Not a business partner. Her mother, Evelyn Braxton. And the reason behind it cut even deeper, Evelyn's continued support for Michael Jr. in the middle of deeply disturbing allegations that ripped open wounds Tamar has been trying to heal her entire life. This wasn't just a legal move. This was personal. This was emotional. This was decades of pain finally boiling over. Because when Tamar took that step, she wasn't just filing paperwork. She was sending a message. She was saying, I feel betrayed by the one person who is supposed to protect me. And that betrayal hit harder because it came from the woman who gave her life. What nobody expected was how ugly, complicated, and heartbreaking this story would become once you really looked at the family dynamics behind it. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about fame. This was about silence. Loyalty. Protecting a family image at the expense of truth, and what happens when a survivor feels abandoned all over again. So let's slow this down. Let's take this piece by piece. Because this story isn't just about a lawsuit. It's about a daughter who felt unheard, a mother who chose sides, and a family fracture that exposed wounds long buried, but never healed.
Well, first of all, I was very disappointed in finding out via social media because our family is closer than that. And to have someone else regurgitate that story to us. Well, I can only speak for me. But for someone else to tell me the story of something that happened to my own family is very disheartening. And as a family member, I would not have allowed that 911 call to happen the way that it did.
Tamar Braxton grew up in a family the world viewed as talented, tight-knit, and unbreakable. 5 sisters. A mother who managed them. Deep gospel roots. Reality TV fame. A legacy that looked solid from the outside. But inside that house, Tamar has said for years, things were not what they seemed. She was the youngest. The loud one. The emotional one. The sister people often brushed off as too much. And for a long time, that made it easy for others to ignore her pain. As the Braxtons rose to fame, Tamar struggled in ways the cameras never fully captured. Her relationships were chaotic. Her marriages fell apart. Her mental health suffered. And again, she hinted that something dark from her childhood followed her everywhere she went. At first, they were whispers. Carefully chosen words. Half-truths wrapped in pain. Eventually, Tamar stopped hinting. She publicly revealed that she had been mistreated for years as a child, not outside the home, but inside it. By people who had access to her daily life. She didn't name names. She didn't point fingers on camera. But she made one thing painfully clear: the trauma didn't come from strangers. And when she finally spoke her truth, Tamar expected support, understanding, protection. What she felt instead was disbelief, distance, and pressure to stay quiet for the sake of the family image. That hurt didn't come from trolls online. It came from her own blood.
How did the tape get out? Was it the boyfriend that put it out?
We have no idea how it came out. We just know as much as you guys know. That to be honest, we don't know all the details of what transpired before that happened. We don't know what happened while the paramedics were there. We have no idea. We just know what you guys know. We know what we heard from the 911 call. As Trina stated, we heard everything on social media. Trina called me in the wee hours of the morning, and that's how I found out. And I looked on social media and was like, why is this everywhere? And we don't know about.
Now fast forward to the situation involving Michael Jr., the son of Tamar's brother, suddenly became the center of serious allegations that shook the family all over again. And once more, Tamar found herself watching history repeat itself. What broke her wasn't just the accusations. It was what happened after. It was who stood where when the dust began to settle. According to Tamar, her mother, Evelyn, chose to publicly support Michael Jr., not privately, not quietly, but in ways that, to Tamar, dismissed the gravity of the situation and ignored the pain of survivors. That choice cut deeper than words. And here's where the twist truly lands. This was never just about Michael Jr., this was about patterns. About silence being protected. About victims being questioned. About family loyalty being valued more than truth. For Tamar, it felt like being re-traumatized, watching the same dynamic she survived as a child play out right in front of her, all over again. Only this time, she refused to stay silent. Tamar sued her mother. Let that sink in. A daughter suing the woman who gave birth to her. Not over money, not over contracts, but over what Tamar believed was emotional harm and betrayal tied directly to supporting someone accused of deeply harmful behavior. This wasn't revenge. This was survival.
Well, I'm going to say this very blatantly and very honestly. During season 7 of Braxton Family Values, we do not talk about Tamar's physical or mental health. We talk about how it affected us, but we do not physically address Tamar's hurt, pain, or experience. We can't speak to that. Tamar has her own story to tell, and it's very important for Tamar to tell her story in her way whenever she decides to tell it. We in no way, shape, or form addressed how Tamar is doing or how Tamar is feeling. We only addressed how we felt, as we're doing now, how we felt when the situation happened, when it came to us.
Tamar's message was loud without ever needing to shout. I cannot heal in an environment that keeps choosing silence over accountability. From Tamar's perspective, Evelyn's actions weren't neutral. They were a statement. A statement that said, once again, protecting a male family member mattered more than acknowledging the damage done. And for someone who has said she spent her childhood being ignored, blamed, or told to stay quiet, that message cut deep. Evelyn, on the other hand, has always presented herself as the matriarch, the protector, the woman who held the family together when everything threatened to fall apart. From her point of view, she may have believed she was standing by her child and grandchild, refusing to abandon family in the face of allegations that had not been legally proven. And this is where the story becomes painfully complicated, because two things can exist at the same time. A mother can truly believe she is protecting her family, and a daughter can feel completely destroyed by that very choice. There are no easy villains here. Only broken trust, unresolved trauma, and a family torn apart by decisions that can't be undone.
I think if you didn't react to it, people would say, what the hell? They don't love their sister?
I mean, it's damn if you do, it's damn if you do, and damn if you don't. If we didn't say anything, then sensitive. And now that we are saying things, and we're only speaking on how it, it's like Trina said, how it affected us, how we were affected in this situation. Because medically speaking, like a lot of doctors will tell you that it's important for the victim to understand how it impacted your family and your friends and your loved ones. It's important for them to see that, so maybe they can get themselves together a little quicker. I'm just saying that it's unfair, really, but we definitely touch on how we experienced it and how we felt when we found out about it, and I don't think anything was wrong with it.
For Tamar, support for Michael Jr. didn't feel neutral. It felt like a rejection of her truth. It felt like ignoring how deeply triggering the situation was for her. It felt like being told, once again, your pain comes second. And that was the final straw. Tamar has spoken about feeling gaslit, about watching her family repeatedly rewrite the narrative to make uncomfortable truths disappear. She has said that every time she tried to set boundaries, she was labeled dramatic, unstable, or difficult. Not heard, not protected, just dismissed. But here's the part no one can afford to ignore anymore. Tamar has nearly lost her life before. She has been open about past suicide attempts. She has spoken candidly about how years of unaddressed trauma almost destroyed her completely. So when she says this situation pushed her to a breaking point, that is an exaggeration. That is a warning, and it deserves to be taken seriously. And then there's another layer of pain that makes this even harder to process. The way her family found out about one of those attempts. Tamar's sisters have publicly shared that they didn't learn what happened through a phone call, not through a family meeting. They found out through social media. A leaked 911 call surfaced, and suddenly the entire world knew what Tamar was going through before her own sisters did. In a family built on closeness and image, that moment exposed just how deep the fractures really were.
Tamar also insisted the footage from the show was staged, specifically referring to when you all found out about the attempt. What are your thoughts on that? I know sometimes you have to reenact things.
Staged. What was staged, though?
I think the reaction, like when y'all, the reaction to finding out about her.
Well, it was merely a question. That's the same question that you're asking us. It was a question that the producers asked us. Hey, how did you feel when this happened? How did you feel when you found out about it? So it's not really reenacting that. It's about expressing and answering the question of how we felt and what we experienced when we found out about it. It was just a question. It wasn't a reenactment.
Her sisters later expressed how disappointed and deeply hurt they were to learn about Tamar's crisis through social media instead of directly from family. They said that if they had known when it happened, things would have unfolded very differently. They would have stepped in sooner. They would have protected her more carefully. And that 911 call, they believe, would never have become public the way it did. Instead, they placed the blame squarely on one person, David, Tamar's boyfriend at the time. The sisters pointed out that on the recording, while Tamar was clearly in distress, David could be heard talking about the network, mentioning Bravo TV during the 911 call. They questioned who does that while their partner is in the middle of a mental health crisis. And they made one thing clear. The leak did not come from the family. It came from someone close to Tamar, someone who had access to one of the most vulnerable moments of her life. But that only created another layer of pain. During season 7 of Braxton Family Values, the show addressed the incident, but not in the way Tamar needed. The focus wasn't on her mental health or what she actually experienced. Instead, it centered on how the situation affected the rest of the family. Cameras rolled as the sisters filmed their reactions. They discussed their feelings, their shock, their hurt, and Tamar was not okay with that. To her, it felt like her trauma was being turned into a storyline, processed for television before it was ever truly processed as a family. Once again, her pain felt secondary. Once again, her voice felt missing from a moment that belonged to her most of all.
It's unfair because we did not speak in any way, shape, or form about Tamar and her situation. We did not make that 911 call. We did not say anything to the media in regards to Tamar's situation. We did not openly say anything about what's happening with Tamar's situation, except for the fact that we love her and we're here for her and we're in her corner. And yet we are the ones who are being ostracized when we are not the ones who are putting things openly in the media. It's completely unfair. It's completely unfair and unwarranted.
Tamar took to social media and accused the network of using her pain for profit. She said she was no longer employed by WeTV, yet her most vulnerable moments were still being used as storyline. She called the footage staged, specifically the scenes showing her sisters finding out about her suicide attempt. Her sisters pushed back. They explained that they were not speaking about Tamar's physical or mental health directly. That was her story to tell on her timeline in her own words. What they were addressing, they said, was how the situation affected them as family members when the news reached them. They weren't speaking for Tamar. They were answering questions about their own experience, their own emotions, and their own reactions. And they also pointed out the impossible position they were placed in. If they said nothing on the show, people would accuse them of not caring about their sister. If they addressed it at all, they were accused of exploiting her pain. Either way, they were wrong in the court of public opinion. It was a classic no-win situation. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And somewhere in the middle of all of it was a family still struggling to understand how to support someone who was hurting without turning that hurt into entertainment.
Is it fair to say if the tape wasn't put out there by whoever put it out there, no one would even know anything because it could have been private, and then her privacy could have really been protected and she could have healed on her own without us even knowing about it to talk about it. Is that fair to say?
That part, yeah.
The sisters felt it was deeply unfair to be attacked as a family simply for continuing to work, only to be ostracized for it when they hadn't experienced the situation the way Tamar had. They were clear about several things. They did not make the 911 call. They did not leak it. They did not speak to the media about Tamar's crisis. Publicly, they limited their words to one message, that they loved her and stood by her. Yet somehow, they were the ones being blamed. And they made a point that was hard to ignore. If that tape had never been leaked, if whoever released it hadn't put it out so quickly, none of this would have become public. Tamar's privacy could have been protected. She could have healed away from the spotlight without the entire world dissecting her pain. The real violation, they said, came from the person who made that private moment public. And it was not the family. But for Tamar, none of that erased what she felt. Watching her family film a reality show, discussing their feelings about her suicide attempt, while she was still trying to survive felt like another betrayal. It felt like her pain was being turned into content. Like the family business mattered more than her well-being. Like once again, she wasn't being treated as a person, but as a storyline. This lawsuit wasn't about revenge. It was about desperation. It was a woman saying, "I cannot survive another moment of being dismissed." This story doesn't have a clean ending. There's no neat bow, no perfect resolution. There's just a woman who finally said enough. And maybe that's the real takeaway, not the lawsuit, not the headlines, but the reminder that silence doesn't heal families. Honesty does. And until that honesty exists, the pain keeps echoing through generations. Think about everything Tamar endured. Childhood trauma she's been trying to heal from her entire life. Finally speaking up, only to feel dismissed and told to stay quiet. Watching her mother publicly support someone accused of harmful behavior in a way that felt like rejection of her own truth. Having one of the most vulnerable moments of her life exposed to the world before her family even knew. Being labeled dramatic or unstable every time she tried to set boundaries. At what point does a person break? At what point does survival require distance from the very people who were supposed to protect you? For Tamar, that point came when she filed the lawsuit. When she said, "I cannot heal in this environment." When she chose herself over family loyalty. And the saddest part is it didn't have to be this way. If someone had simply said, "I hear you. I believe you. Your pain matters." Maybe the lawsuit never happens. Maybe the family doesn't fracture. Maybe Tamar doesn't have to choose between her mother and her mental health. But that's not what happened. What's left now is a broken relationship, a mother and daughter divided by a courtroom, and a woman who had to sue her own mother just to feel heard. The question that remains is simple and devastating. Who will listen before it's too late?